And then we just. We didn't get the. We didn't practice the right. Still, I. I don't know what would have been for it. Are you ready?
Or I could be sit down.
Yeah.
Who has that? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't have them. No, that's right. There we go.
Want to get started if we can, everybody? I'd like to welcome everybody to this Planning Commission meeting tonight. Everybody that's here, if we have anybody on Zoom, welcome. You're gonna have to bear with me. The big boy, he's not here, so you got me running this thing, so this could get messy. So first item of business tonight, we need to approve some minutes from the Planning Commission meeting. What?
So we're doing a presentation first. You just turn the time over to Jake.
Oh, okay, sorry. Turned over to Jake.
Welcome, everyone. This is part of the open house for the general plan. So thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here and appreciate your input and involvement. Morgan City has been working on this, on the general plan over 2 years. You remember when you started? But it's been more than 2 years. And over the last year, the Planning Commission month by month has gone through every single chapter, every detail, every map, really kind of examine everything, put a lot of thought and debate into it, and really flushed out the plan. And so the Planning Commission is given the green light to hold the public hearing, to have the open house. All of the meetings have been public at the Planning Commission level. They're all online. If you want to go watch 50 hours of YouTube on Morgan City, you can do that. But there's been a lot of thought into it. And a general plan, typically you're looking out 20 years, sometimes less, sometimes more, but it's approximate. And of course, there's no crystal balls what will happen in Morgan City, but it is a great place and a lot of people are happy to be here, to live here. And Morgan City will continue to grow. It has been growing since it began and will continue to grow. A lot of people that are raised here want to stay. A lot of kids want to build homes here, and that's a big part of the growth. And also those who move in from outside really enjoy the quality of life here. And the general plan looks at a number of items, and that includes future land use. What are we going to do with the land? Also housing, where do we live? How do we live? Transportation, where do the roads go? What do we do with the existing roads? And then also parks and trails, which is a really important aspect to the quality of life in Morgan. And then also the economy. There are jobs here, but how can we create more jobs? There's businesses, and what do they need to grow and prosper? And so with that, I'm going to let Lisa Benson from Landmark. She's been the lead consultant on this project for 2 years. So she's going to give us an overview presentation. And then during the Planning Commission, we'll have the public hearing, and anybody that would like can present their ideas for 3 minutes and share their comments. And then after that, the Planning Commission will close the public hearing and debate it and decide what they want to do with it, if they feel it's ready or it needs more work.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I just want to provide you with a high-level overview of the general plan. As Jake mentioned, the general plan is intended to establish and communicate the community's vision. So it's trying to balance current needs with anticipated future needs, and to ensure that the community develops in the way that you want to see it develop, and also kind of take advantage of opportunities and give a vision that deals with some of the likely changes that may come. And as Jake mentioned, we've had several opportunities for community involvement throughout the process. We've been working with an advisory committee, and there was a community survey that went out in the beginning of the process. We started this process out kind of jointly with the county, and this is where we're heading with the city's general plan. We also had extensive focus group interviews, project websites, some online engagement tools, and then briefings, obviously with leadership, and then some of these the public hearings and other opportunities like tonight's open house. So out of the public engagement and working with the committee and staff, we developed a series of guiding principles to give an overview, kind of a guiding framework to the general plan. So some of the things that came out of that included, a lot of this came out of the survey as well. The importance of protecting community character, that small rural Western town feel that everybody loves about Morgan. The agricultural identity is really important to the community, both as a livelihood, a lifestyle, and then just the visual character of that as well. The idea of smart growth, in that where development occur, to do that well and use smart growth principles. Transportation, improving the connectivity and safety of roadways within the community. Improving the housing options so that people can age in the community if they choose. And then also find ways to provide housing options while maintaining some of that open space that the community values. Economic development, trying to enhance what you have to serve local residents, but also capitalize a little bit on the tourism to help bring a little bit of extra revenue into the city while hopefully people continue on down the road. The environment and natural resources are important to the community, and that kind of feeds into the visual character and obviously the natural resources, the quality of water in the community, that sort of thing. Protecting those community services, so trying to balance low taxes with the need for housing and all of the services that the city provides, and then providing a comprehensive and connected parks and recreation system, particularly since you don't have access to a lot of public lands like other communities, in the mountainous areas, then having options within the community are important. So the plan looks out till about 2040, and the population is supposed to nearly double if you look at the Wasatch Front Regional Council estimates. And if you look at census estimates, the population is supposed to increase a lot less compared to that. So from about 4,000 now to either somewhere between 5 and 8. So it's kind of a range of growth that we're anticipating as part of this plan. This is the future land use map, and it summarizes and kind of encapsulates the vision of the community. And so we still have the low density residential areas. That's that lightest yellow that's out around the perimeter. And then that kind of tapers inward to the medium density, which is the orange. The general commercial is the red up along the north side of the freeway. The green in the upper right is it's kind of a conservation use that's intended to protect the city's natural resources. And some other new uses in the general plan this go around are the master plan community, which is in the pink, kind of in the northwest portion here. And the idea is that with these larger parcels of undeveloped land, if the city can work with somebody that potentially may want to develop that in the future, it would be better and more beneficial to the community to have more of a comprehensive vision for that and plan, rather than just developing, parcel by parcel and piecemeal. And maybe the community could get more of, what would be beneficial to the community as a whole. Along the river, there is a river-oriented commercial and recreation area, and those are more kind of recreation focused, but also the idea of bringing in a little bit of commercial uses into those areas that fit with the context of the river, and also trying to do, providing some more public access to the river, but also taking steps to protect the resource as well. And in the darker blue, there is the light industrial tech flex area. So that's kind of light industrial and manufacturing, supposed to be kind of more low impact uses. And then the downtown mixed use area, kind of, commercial street and behind. And Jake is working on a master plan, as he mentioned, for that area right now, which is exciting that the city is already kind of taking some of the next steps as we are finishing up this process. And then there are a series of overlays, and I'll go through a few of those. So the low density residential use, and these are some sample imagery of what that, might look like or could look like, representative image. So low density residential, about 2 to 3 units per acre. And the previous general plan had 0 to 5 units per acre as the gross density specified in the plan. Medium residential is 3 to 5 units per acre, and the previous general plan had it called out at 6 to 15 units per acre. The master planned community, again, this is that trying to provide an area where you have some comprehensive principles that are being applied. And these are some of the ideas that could be incorporated into that, walkability, focusing on mixed housing, ensuring that you have quality architecture and connected parks and open spaces. It allows for a little bit of increased density typically, connected to transportation, and also focusing on sustainability and just improving the quality of life within that area and the community, because you're trying to provide connections out beyond that as well. The downtown mixed use area, again, that is intended to bring in not only some commercial, but the possibility of some residential uses within there, providing the city with more options as it grows. So you could have commercial with maybe a little bit of residential on the same property. And that could be, adjacent behind. It could be, shared within the same structure. It can take different forms depending on where you settle out with your your zoning ordinances. That light industrial tech flex, again, kind of light manufacturing uses. And the river oriented commercial and recreation, maybe it's some sort of urban camping situation or lodging or, fishing and guiding services that are focused around the river. And then the conservation for public facilities, that's that green area that I pointed out that was in the northeast corner. And that's just to protect the city's water supplies and the springs that are up there providing the water source. And there are a few overlays for recreation parks and open space, public facilities and cemeteries. So these uses can occur anywhere within any of the other uses, but they don't necessarily have to have their specific designated use. Or if one of those uses goes away for some reason, then you have the idea of what the community wants to see underneath that. The plan also goes into some placemaking concepts. So the idea of enhancing community gateways, at either end of Commercial Street and at the intersection of State and Young, where people kind of giving people more of a sense of entry into the community, knowing that they've arrived. And the plan provides a lot of recommendations like wayfinding and some urban design treatments for some of the different districts. And, the community would do you do your own planning. So you establish what that vision is. And that's part of, what Jake is already working on for some of that. The plan provides some tools to help with agricultural land preservation. And as a community, you need to determine which tools work best for you. The plan doesn't prescribe what works, but just offers you some ideas on what, some options out there. The plan dives into transportation as well. We've had a transportation planner on the team through the whole process, and they've gone through and documented, all of the existing street networks and what is proposed on the books right now for the future. And the plan kind of looks even a little beyond that. It documents, what your pedestrian connectivity is, what your sidewalk system looks like right now, and then what the traffic increase in volume might be, with growth in the future. And you can see there along Young Street with the bridge, that's kind of changed that a little bit. And so that's why that number looks so big. It's just that, a lot of people couldn't make that connection before. So if you weren't going to the schools, then you weren't heading down that road. And it also presents some safety and connectivity opportunities. So some strategic plans or implementation measures the city might take within specific locations or ideas throughout the community to improve these aspects of the transportation network. We've also had an economic planner on the team as well. And they looked in depth at the housing situation within the city. And so they look at the ratio of rent or mortgage to income. And if you have a ratio that's, 30% or greater, if somebody's paying 30% of their mortgage or their income towards their rent or mortgage, then it's considered a burden. And ratios that exceed 50% are a severe burden. So right now, the mortgage to owner income ratio in the city is 22.5%. And the rent to income is 26%. So the rents are definitely approaching that burden category. Yes. Yeah. And because we started this planning process so long ago, it's taken a while. And so, we may have to, I'm sure it's changed significantly from what is even here. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, I would agree with you. The housing gap, they looked in depth at actual units and projected populations and what the need will be, kind of spelling out what the city will need to be planning for. And then looking at affordable housing needs as well. And so typically with housing, they look at household area median income, and just looking at, incomes throughout the area and looking at affordability, you'd take a percentage of that median income. So they look at 30% of that household area median income, or 50% or 80%. And they're just saying that 80%, that 80% level is going to see the most demand.
Good question.
Yes,
That one slide.
yes, sir.
Back to the other one, question about.
Yeah.
So if you took that data and next slide
Mhm.
overlaid this projection, you can see how accurate you have been in the last 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be an interesting comparison to make, actually. Yeah, yeah. Let's see, I can talk about that one, yeah. Okay, and so the key recommendations out of the housing chapter are to expand zoning to allow for higher density and mixed use, to resolve your infrastructure limitations to development, just making sure that you have, capacity and plans for sewer and water and those sorts of demands that will come with additional growth. And then promoting accessory dwelling units, which you guys are already taking steps on that, so congrats. Economic development, there's some in-depth information in the general plan about, which categories of commercial uses you're doing well with, where people will stay here and spend their dollars versus categories where they go down to the valley to sponsor and so, or to purchase. And so it's called sales leakage if you're losing more money, your residents are spending their money elsewhere, basically. So they try to point out areas where you can improve maybe and provide some of those uses so that people might spend their dollars within the community. So you're capturing 153% of all taxable retail sales compared to the average for the state. And you're doing well with motor vehicle and parts dealers and with food and beverage. Your highest leakage are in electrical and appliance, furniture and home furnishings, and then general merchandise. So just a lot of those retail uses, people are heading down the hill. So unique opportunities, recommendations include becoming a marketable destination. Again, trying to get people to come here, spend their dollars, and then keep traveling. And then where economic development can occur to get it right. And that's the whole point of trying to do your general plan, to figure out exactly what you want to do in the future. And then focusing on properly scaled economic development. And a lot of communities come in and they have commercial all over their future land use map. And so you need to, we're trying to make sure that we're showing appropriate locations and in the appropriate amount with this plan. And then also fostering job growth and related infrastructure to support, employment in the region as well in the city. So there is a chapter on environmental conditions and hazards. And this is a sample of, one of the conditions that the plan looks at, problematic soils. And this doesn't mean that you can't build a house in an area that has red on it. It just means that there are certain extra reviews or, conditions that may need to be met for that to happen. But it's definitely good to keep in mind, some of these conditions that exist in the city and what might need to take place to ensure that developments are, safe and not sliding off the hill. And plenty of communities have had situations that you don't want to have to be dealing with here. And you already have a lot of strategies in place to deal with that. The chapter also dives into community services. So looking at utilities and that sort of thing at a general level, the services that the community provides. And then the last chapter is parks and recreation. So we took a high level view of your parks and recreation system, what you have and where you might have gap areas. So right now you just have the 2 parks in the city. And we also, so we look at distribution, which tells us where in the community parks are located and whether people have access to that from where they live. And then we also look at level of service, which is acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. So right now the city has 3.14 acres per 1,000 residents. And the community has decided to kind of bump that vision up to 4.5 acres per 1,000 people. And I would say comparing to other communities along the Wasatch Front, you're falling right in the middle. So it's not abnormal. There are some that are a lot higher and some that are a lot lower. And it's also common as communities age and develop to have that level of service drop a little bit just because you're trying to balance so many priorities. But it's great to target that 4.5 acres if you can. And that way, when developments come in, you might, be able to negotiate for some of your parkland. And this map shows where just the general vicinity of some additional parks. So at the south end, and then these other ones kind of on the west side in the purple. And then this map also indicates, the blue indicates that the school properties do serve that need a little bit. They contribute. It's not under control of the city, but that does help meet needs. So assuming this 4.5 acres per 1,000 people, in 2030, you would need an additional 8.2 acres of parkland. And then by 2040, you need an additional 2.2 acres to maintain that. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're meeting distribution needs. So you might need a little more land to make sure you're, meeting that distribution need and that people will have access to parks from where they live. The recreation concept wraps up this chapter, and this takes all of the existing park locations and then the proposed park locations and connects them with a trail network. And the orange is a street side kind of trail network that's proposed. And this might be the easiest one to get in initially if you're planning for it as you're planning for new roads. Ideally, it would be great to get some of those green connections along the waterways, but that's obviously challenging when people, current owners may have no intention of ever providing access. But if you don't have the vision, on the plan somewhere, then you'll never kind of make that progress. So this is just giving the kind of the dream. Like if this could happen, this would give you, the idea is to connect all of your parks with community destinations. And then also the idea of maybe the county having more of a regional park out there where the pickleball courts are right now, making that more of a regional recreation destination and connect all that again with trails. So that's kind of the quick and dirty overview. Does anybody have questions about a particular slide or topic?
So I noticed at the front of the presentation that the key agriculture, but I didn't notice any on the map there, that preserved ag. So, just curious where you think that will take place.
And that's always the challenge, and some of that is in how maybe some of these master plan community areas develop. Maybe, some communities do what's called cluster development where they'll allow a higher concentration of housing in a certain area and, with some of that agricultural land preserved as open space. And we met with one of our focus groups was with a bunch of farmers and agricultural representatives. And they were talking about making sure that it's, you have to have a minimum size to make it worthwhile, or else it's just kind of becomes like a weedy open space and it's not useful. So yeah, a lot of that depends on, it will depend on how you move forward with your ordinances and any sort of special area plans that you do and how you negotiate with developers in the future. But again, some of the tools that I had on that list, like transfer of development rights, some communities have been really proactive with that. I know, Mapleton, they've done that in their community to preserve they wanted to preserve a lot of the foothill open space on the edge of the community. And it can get a little controversial because then it pushes a little bit of density into the city. But you just have to decide, what some of the trade-offs are that you want as a community, what you're willing to pay for and accept. So
really you're just expecting agriculture, only be outside of that area.
I mean, it could be in there if you get a big enough, if you have a big enough chunk of land that you can set aside enough, if it works financially for the developer and they can get enough density and yeah.
But generally speaking, the city would be in favor of that because the Greenville, they would lose tax revenue with holding parcels within the city limits as ag. That's nonsensical to expect. They would vote that way.
Yeah.
So we really, to answer your question, no, outside of the city.
Well, plus the people that are living around there start complaining about the smell
Mhm.
or the sprays or all that, and they destroy the farmer's house. I've seen it where I've lived before.
Except that agriculture is evolving like everything else, technically speaking. Large amount of agriculture can be done within cities, on rooftops, with hydroponics,
Mhm.
curing of agriculture. For example, this is corn down here, and above the corn is alfalfa. Vertically, so there's things like that, this is a 20-year plan, so that's likely to begin within. The other thing I had a question about is, back a few slides when you're talking about the recreational area
Mhm.
expected in the future, could you go back to the
Yeah.
projection for 2030?
Yeah.
So 8.2 acres in just a little over 5 years is needed. What's the thinking of the group of where that will come from within the city of Morgan? Is there any thinking, or we're just identifying what we think we need?
We're just identifying the need in this plan in the city, I don't know if Ty has any thoughts on.
Yeah, so we either have to purchase the property at market rate. Or really the big opportunity would be master plan development community, because you take a larger chunk of land, but when we develop at 10 acres at a time, there's not even enough land, we keep getting these little detention ponds that we call open space, but they're just too small to do anything with. And so, in some ways, the bigger the development at the time, the more you get to be who you want to be. You know what I mean?
Understand that. Your detention ponds, a lot of cities use those for dog parks,
Yeah,
which is a real good use.
yeah, we've got some that would serve that purpose. They're large enough right now to do that, but we don't know where the 8 acres is gonna come from. It's just a target, and we've never had a number before, so.
This is great.
Well, that's kind of the whole idea of this is, if you just let things develop as they do, you don't really end up with any overall benefits.
Utah, for example, that.
Yeah.
And I should say, I think these numbers are at the census population projection. So this is actually the low end of the range. So it might, your level of service and your distribution might align a little bit more with that extra population. So, okay.
The fairgrounds, all that area, like you said. Like
Mhm.
the walks.
Yeah.
Is that area cannot be used for more fields? There's nowhere for the kids to play sports. It's a disaster.
Yeah.
With the rec program to try to find space and people. So what about over there? Can that be turned into something like that?
Yeah, and the plan recommends partnering with the county to try and work on some of those issues in the school district, definitely, because those are issues that are hard to tackle on your own necessarily. And it's a community-wide issue, especially since some of your teams and everything are, throughout the community. So definitely that's a possibility. And one of the, when I was talking about the placemaking plan in the different districts, that's one of the elements that the plan describes as a recreation district. So it could be like this cool recreation center, by that county facility, and then you have the fairgrounds, and then trying to kind of connect that in a little bit to downtown, and then with that trail network overlaying. So all of these different chapters, they're separate, but they try to have a little bit of overlap and connection to meet all these different needs.
Another comment, the map of the recreational trail system projected, back to that one.
Let's see. It's not,
Technology.
does somebody want?
You were doing great.
Here.
I thought, when we get there. Okay, I think this is a wonderful addition to your town because of its compact nature. If you can integrate all of these properties with this trail system, then it gives the feeling of a larger recreational area
Mhm.
in a compact area, and it's inexpensive to do, save the trail along the river, that particular green marker, that particular trail is a high value, extremely high, much more value than what you would pay for it to the community for people to have access to live water. There's health benefits that come from walking along live water. There's mental benefits. And you said some of that is restricted currently by ownership.
Mhm.
That should be, and this is my opinion as a member of the community, that should be a high priority because it will increase property values of the town. It will increase the destination tourism of the town if that particular part that's been identified already is in place. But if you can make the full loop, there's several examples in, I think, Ogden proper did that work with their river walkway, and the results have been impressive. Duchesne and Uinta Basin implemented a river walkway like that. Tremendous benefit to the community, increased sales, increased destination tourism, et cetera, et cetera. So that's nice. That's in your plan. That's a beautiful thing. Potentially.
Good question, right?
California, and in the last, two of the highest tax rated places. I'm paying the same amount of taxes here that I was paying there, in both states. And now I'm seeing all of this, and I'm thinking, okay, how much more is our taxes? And our lifestyle is gonna completely change. I moved to a small town because I love small towns. I love coming in and seeing all those beautiful fields as I'm coming in. And it welcomes me home, and to think that this is gonna double in size, it just makes me nauseated.
It's inevitable.
No, it's not. It's not inevitable. I have been involved in a number of committees or
Okay.
in the shadow part of it. And I've seen what it's done to the communities.
Thank
But
you.
can-
Thank you
The
for coming.
point of the town, wisely planning ahead, is to guide that they perceive as growth, and studies show, you know, with a growing population, with increasing invasion by immigrants in the south border, looking for desirable places to live, growth is inevitable, whether it all happens in Morgan or not, it will happen. And if you plan for it, then the deleterious effects that concerns you and me, that's why I moved here 3 years ago, they can be managed and turned to your most positive benefit. As far as taxes go, if you follow their plan, is increasing the commercial aspects will carry the bulk of that load. That doesn't have to be on homeowners. That could be on the people that tour here, that come, leave their money and leave. And that obligation, financial obligation, can be spread out. So like you and I saw our taxes in the last couple of years go up significantly. Last year dropped a little bit. You don't have to trade your lifestyle for, if you get involved with the process, you can, that's why you're here tonight, obviously, you can steer from the best benefit. And then we always have a choice, like I did. I moved away from a place that I didn't like, one I did.
And thank you for everyone's comments. And I think the planning commission wants to start the official meeting. So thank you for your time. Appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you. Ready? Okay. Welcome, Planning Commission meeting tonight. What?
Announce these people. If the open house is over, give them a leave if they want, so they can stay.
Yes,
Well, I figured they knew that.
look at that. Love it.
Okay. That part's over. Now let's move on to the next part of the meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Morgan City Planning Commission meeting tonight. We have some business to take care of. First item of business is the approval of the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting on January 16th. Commission, has everyone had an opportunity to look over the minutes? Are there any changes that need to be made? Okay, I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes.
I think the motion that we approve minutes as recorded.
Can we have a motion from Mark? Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Aaron. So we have a motion by Mark and a second by Aaron to approve the minutes from January 16th. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Oh, Jason's on there. Right, Jason? It's, Teresa, it's, the vote is unanimous. Okay. So we'll start the next part of the meeting. Jake, would you like to take some time to review the plan, general plan update and the amendments to the annexation declaration map and the annexation policy plan?
Thank you, Chair. Again, welcome to everyone. Gonna do a little screen share here. There we go. So I'm gonna just walk through the annexation part. We just received a 30-minute presentation on the general plan, and so we don't need to spend more time on that. The process will be, I'll explain the annexation policy, the annexation declaration plan as part of the general plan, and then we'll go ahead and then the Planning Commission can open up the public hearing after that. And so that way, if you'd like to share your comments, up to 3 minutes on either of those two items, then you can do so. So as part of the general plan, as we were working through the project, we meaning that the city said, let's take a long look at our annexation area. And the city has had this annexation map for over 20 years. And in the 20 years that there's been the annexation map, there's only been one annexation that's happened in that 20 years, and that happened last year. And so not a lot has changed with that. But in doing the general plan and having this long-term big picture look, we were looking at what areas of the city could possibly, and again, that the word is possibly, annex into the city over the next 20 plus years. And when a property annexes into a city, it cannot be an island. You just can't go out. It has to be continuous or contiguous. And so it's not just these random islands out that come in. And so it has to be contiguous. And so the city boundary is in red. You'll see that on the screen. And then the current city boundary is in red, including the recent annexation up here on 700 East and just south of I-84. And then the orange is the current annexation policy map. So that means if someone was going to petition to annex into the city would look at to see if it's in those areas in the orange area. And so in looking at this, in planning, the city had a number of meetings, did some research and study, and we met, and we also worked this through with the Planning Commission and the City Council. And that's where we have this proposed annexation for the areas in blue. And I'll start here on the southwest. These are some large properties that are next to the city boundary. Some of those properties are owned by the school district. And so there's a likelihood that there would need to be services there if schools are built. And the city is better able to service schools through utilities, roads, networks, things like that, than the county would. And so that's why it's in there, in the area on the southwest. And then coming up here on the northwest, some of these parcels of the previous annexation split parcels down the middle. And so we changed the map to include entire parcels up on the northwest. And then also coming along the north, just keeping a clean boundary across. And then this area in the upper northeast, that area was included just because of its value to the city in terms of water source protection. There's no plans for development in that area. It's more for protecting springs and services to the city, but not actually development there. Also, the fairground was included in the annexation. The city does provide water to some of this area that's already outside of the city boundary. And also, as the fairground just continues to improve and add amenities, if the county wants to petition for annexation, they could, or also part of Como Springs. And then coming down to the south, these are some large properties that also have had discussions. Again, there's no plans for annexation for these parcels on the south, but also looking at what areas could potentially come in over the next 20 plus years. And in terms of annexation, the city doesn't bring properties in. It's the landowner makes an application or a petition to come into the city. And so it's a voluntary process for that to happen. And then just a couple things. This is our annexation policy plan that is part of the public hearing tonight for this specific item. I did include numbers here for Morgan City population, year 2000, 2,800, and then 2010, 37, 3,700, and then 2020 census, 4,085, and then the most recent date is 4,485. That one's a little bit more approximate, whereas census are more exact numbers. But some of the factors as to why Morgan City will continue to grow, current residents of Morgan City enjoy living here, and children want to stay. We hear that time and time again. Reasonable commuting distance to Weber and Davis County jobs, also to Summit. And of course, there's jobs there as well. And of course, some additional jobs locally. We have the interstate, which provides a lot of resources, a solid economy, both in the city and the county and the state. And then the surrounding farmland, which is suitable to development. Doesn't mean it has to be developed, but it is suitable, typically flat. And of course, there are some mountains and hillside as well. In terms of criteria for annexing into the city, our policy is to follow the state code. And specifically, we didn't deviate from the state code because the state code is changing and probably will be changing on annexation. But also we have Morgan City ordinances for annexation as well. And so this just defers to the ordinances. But when looking at annexation, the things that matter the most is what is the proximity to the city? Are there utilities? Are there services? Is it developable? What does it do to the tax base to the city by coming into the city? All of those things are considered when a property is proposed for annexation. And again, looking 20 years out, and the annexation policy can be amended at any point. It doesn't have to be 20 years, but that's the typical horizon. Sounds like that's my time. So I don't have any additional information on the general plan. Lisa did a great job in presenting that. And so Planning Commission, if you have any questions before we open up the public hearing.
What's the percentage of the town's growth rate? Percentage?
What's the current percent? Oh, annual percent. Lisa, do you have that number off the top of your head? I think it's about, I don't know the exact number. Probably less than 2, but not down too far.
Per annum.
Yeah, it's in that range. I've looked at it before, but I didn't have it off the top of my head.
First meeting that was in on changing the general plan, something stuck in my head and they said, because there was, oh, sorry, talking about growth. And they said by 2050, there will be half as many people on the Wasatch back as there are on the Wasatch front. Have they changed that? That's the thing that stuck in my head. That many people.
Half as many
Half as many people on the Wasatch back as there are on the Wasatch front.
today.
The growth, yeah. That was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
have they, I was just wondering.
I haven't heard anything recent on that.
The first meeting that we met with these folks on starting this general plan, that's the one that stuck in my head, that people got to go somewhere.
So in 2021 or?
Yeah, about 2021. But anyway, I just want, yeah. You ready?
Yep, you can proceed.
Okay, Utah code requires a public hearing to amend the general plan and to amend the annexation declaration map and annexation policy plan. Could I please have a motion and a second to open the public hearing on item 1? Thank you. The general plan and item 2 and the amendment to the annexation declaration map and annexation policy plan. Can I get a motion?
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion by Aaron. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Are there any opposed? Oh, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Teresa, the motion passes. Okay, is there anyone here at the meeting, either in person, electronically, that would like to make a public comment? And can we please try to keep it down to around 3 minutes, please?
Chair, if I could make a rather than have everybody turn around again and face, we'll use our mobile mics and we can pass it
You're an idea, man.
to them. It came from Ty. So we'll pass them the mic and maybe if people just raise their hands and we can proceed orderly and like you said, 3 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Please state your name.
State your name and address.
So I think also the chair should acknowledge each person instead of just passing the mic. So they can raise their hand, but the chair would acknowledge each person and invite their comment.
Okay,
Does that make sense? Instead of just passing the mic up and down. So it kind of replicates like coming to the podium, but
so we're going to do, if you'll just kind of state your name so Teresa can get it. Yeah, okay.
I have one here too.
Carl Harding, 136 North, 300 West. I haven't heard a whole lot about what we're going to do about planning for our transportation issues, and I'd be curious to know what's happening with that as we grow. We definitely have some problems in the city right now, and I'd like to hear a comment on that.
So on the
Please.
load, oh, sorry, Breanne Johnson, I live on Larkspur Lane.
Thank you.
How do we change the low density housing from 2 to 3 houses per acre to 1 house per acre? Is that even plausible? I mean, my husband and I, our families have lived here for generations, and that to me is high density housing, and our way of life is changing drastically, and it's not somewhere I want to continue to raise my kids if it's gonna grow at the rate that it is, because they're growing up completely different than I did, and the demographic is changing, and I don't know, how do we change it so that low density is actually low density and one house per acre or one house per 2 acres? I know in Mountain Green, 40 years ago, they approached the city about making it, Mapleton did just petition to do this and they got it passed, but nothing less than an acre was allowed to be built on. It had to be at least an acre. So is that something that we could do so that low density is lower than that?
Jake, you got a comment on that?
Yeah. So during the public hearing, just you can state questions, your comments, whatever you want. And then when we close the public hearing, the planning commission will discuss the items. And we're all taking notes.
So Howard Brinkerhoff, 250 East, 100 North. I just like to congratulate the city for being farsighted enough to forward and put the energy into developing a plan so that can be discussed, reviewed, debated, rejected, or accepted rather than letting it develop randomly. And that way everyone's concerns can be addressed. Well done.
Any other comments? Okay. There isn't any more public comments.
Can I have
More?
another comment?
Yes, you may.
And as it comes to having these fields of weeds, I for one would much rather have cows as my neighbors and open fields than anything else. And most everybody I talk to that loves this community and has been here for a long, long time feels the same way. Like, we would love to keep this place, the farming community that we grew up in, and everyone was close knit. You knew everyone, you supported each other. We've lost a lot of community support, even with, I mean, for instance, the athletics and that, nobody goes out to those things anymore. People don't know each other. And unless we slow things way down, we spread people out. That's another big complaint I hear is people move in and they're like, oh, we want more space, and we're gonna sell our house and find somewhere else. Why don't we start out with more space? And then we're not seeing so much of that. All right, I'm done, I think.
Go ahead. State your name.
All right, Ethan Clark, and I live on 349 North, 250 East. I guess my comment is, I think it's good just to, obviously, my family has a farm here in Morgan and has had a farm here in Morgan for like 150 years. So I think it's good that like we need to remember agriculture in this planning. And I know it seems maybe funny to say, but 4 years ago, like we need to like remember where our food came from, because it wasn't that long ago that you'd walk in the grocery store and the shelves were like empty. And Utah in general, the ag community in general in Utah is really suffering right now from developmental pressures, a lot of things. But I was at a meeting where a state representative said in the next 10 or 20 years, there's going to be like so many tens of thousands new houses in Utah built. And like those are already lots approved. And I just made me think, how many of those are like farms that, yeah, and like all of them probably. Anyway, but I think it's good to keep agriculture close in communities just for the fact of even, I know it might sound silly right now, but food security issues. And if the worst came to worst, there is a place where food could be derived from the local community. Anyway, so that's just my comment.
Thank you.
Bruce Clark, 850 East, 525 North in Morgan. One of the locations where I live is up on the hill, up above Barber Brothers. And one of the things that I've noticed, plus we have the farm down below the railroad tracks and the freeway. If I open my windows at night, I can't sleep because of the noise of the freeway and the railroad tracks, right? I would rather move across town away from the freeway and things like, and the railroad tracks because it's just so noisy. Anyway, as I look at city planning, my my thought would be develop those areas that are more of a wasteland and not being used for agriculture because of food dependency. As I look at the world today, we are becoming less food secure than we ever have been before. And you cannot rely on Mexico to produce all of our food because when trucking or fuel or whatever the transportation that we are using today becomes null and void, or whatever happens to our transportation system, it will be interesting to me to see what happens there, because without a major transportation system to bring food from China or from wherever has open space, we need to remember that it's much more profitable to not truck it or ship it. And so as a community, we do need those areas that can produce food for ourselves and for others that are close by in case of a worldwide event that may happen. I don't know, just ask Putin what he's trying to do. I don't know. But anyway, if you get my point, the world seems to be spiraling into a little bit more chaos than it has been. But we also need to remember what are our possibilities that would happen. Do we need a food supply here, or do we need a food supply that's close? And do we have the water to do that? That should be something that should be thought of in our planning of our cities and county. Thank you.
In light of that comment and thinking about what was missing from the master plan, I didn't see a community garden, which would be useful as a category on the master plan, or several of those. And that could be as big as a farm, the community garden.
Steve Gale, 699 North, 700 East. So my statement is, I would rather be prepared if a landowner decides to sell, to have more of a say on what's developed on that property rather than just have it randomly. And the other thing I want to say is I'm in defense of nobody selling property. Nobody. I don't care how much pressure is put on somebody. If they want to hold their land, they should be able to hold their land. But none of this plan will take place unless somebody sells. But we need to be prepared if that circumstance is that somebody needs to sell, that we have more of a say as a city than just to randomly turn it over to who knows what. So I agree with everything that we're saying, but please, if you're a landowner, don't feel like the city is putting pressure on you to sell. I say that as a citizen, and I say that as your mayor.
Wayne Fry, 200 North, 100 West. I have to agree with Carl on this, because last year or year before, we had a fire down the end of the street. And nobody could get in or out down there. You have to do something to slow down the growth so people have an idea. Going past our place, you can tell what time of day it is just by the traffic. And when they last subdivision, those big cement trucks and that, it's crazy. There needs to be an issue made of how you get in and out.
Any more comments? Okay. One more comments. Can I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
We have a motion by Aaron. Can I get a second? Ray seconds it. All in favor of closing the meeting, say aye. Aye. Jason, thank you. Any opposed? It's unanimous, Teresa. Okay.
Chair, I've made some notes here. I could respond to some of these comments.
Perfect.
And then the planning commission could jump in as I talk about them, elaborate and share your thoughts. So the first comment was about the transportation issues. And I'm gonna go to our transportation map. There we go. So a couple things on that. We do recognize that the transportation is a significant issue. Of course, there's only one freeway exit into town. There's some areas, particularly in the southwest and west, where there's limited street connectivity, and that is an issue. The plan does include the proposed future, the dotted lines are areas for proposed future roads. They're not exact, they're not specific. It's saying if development occurs in this area, then we want to get these street connections. We need additional bridges over the freeway, and we also need additional bridges over Weber River to connect areas. And so these are just some proposed areas. Right now, the city is doing additional planning with trails and sidewalks and what they call active transportation. So, bike, pedestrian around town. Also, we've had conversations with UDOT in petitioning money to help do some transportation master planning citywide. And UDOT did promise money last year, but then they didn't have it. And so we are high on their list. So hopefully over the next couple of years, we'll get some additional grant funding to do a more detailed transportation study. So I just wanted to say it is something we're looking at and talking about, and also as subdivisions do come in, which they do on occasion, having more street connections is something that engineering is asking for, and the planning commission and the council and staff are asking. And we, even the last year, I've seen a number of cases where someone's brought in a plan and either staff comments from engineering or others have said, sorry, that's not working. Please go back and look at additional intersections. And the idea citywide is the more street connections, the better, because that way traffic is dispersed and there's different ways to get across town. Now we have 2 bridges to get to Commercial Street or to get to 700 East and get to the other side of town. And that's a great thing. And so we'll be looking at more opportunities there.
Yeah, I comment. I think a perfect example of what we're trying to do to help that transportation is a recent expansion of Young Street and the new bridge. What that has done during school is amazing, because so many people coming from Mountain Green now, instead of going all the way through town and up State Street, they're coming around the other way. And I think that's helped a lot. That's a perfect example of some things we're trying to do to help ease the traffic situation.
Yeah. Okay. I'll move on to the next one. Comment. Comment was about having more density, the desire to have larger lots, particularly 1 acre lots. With that, I mean, there is a range in the city. There are on the perimeter larger lots, and then as you move towards the center, smaller lots, and the plan is to allow for variety and options. So there is options for affordability, no matter what your budget is. Maybe there's a place for you in Morgan, whether it's a townhome or apartment close to the center and in the core, or if you want to spend the money and want the large lot and like grass, and you can live on the perimeter. If someone really wanted to only have 1 acre lots, they would have to buy all the land and just keep it at 1 acre lots. I mean, I think that's just the reality of that. The cost to develop is really expensive. Recently, I saw a bid for developing a subdivision in Weber County, and not counting the land, it was about 70,000 a lot just for the road and utilities. Not including the land, just a contractor to come in and put in water, sewer, irrigation, electrical, road, curb gutter, all of that. It was 70,000 a lot. And so certainly things are expensive these days, and that's where having a variety of lot sizes, and of course, the more lots you can fit on an acre, the more affordable they can become. There's an economy, a scale there on that. And that's a little bit different than the ag. Any comments on the topic of lot sizes? And one thing on the future land use is these are ranges. The detail really happens in zoning, and these are ranges. Yes, please.
I also wanted to mention that when we were having our focus group with the agricultural community, a lot of them made pretty clear that, their property is their retirement. And also that, the community loves the views of the open space. We all love that open field and the green fields. But they also reminded us that they don't want to foot the bill for that, for the community. And so it's kind of what we're trying to do is take a balanced approach. And that's why we have that list of tools, and we're trying to get, the community to chime in on what works for you and what options appeal to you. What are you willing to pay? What's important? Are there key properties that are worth coming together and, funding a bond for or something like that? So just trying to keep in mind like the balance of, private property rights, and then what we all like to see preserved in our communities, and just another perspective there.
Thank you, Lisa. And I was just gonna add on to that, the topic of agriculture preservation. I really appreciate that. I think it's very important. Obviously, we're gonna need it in the future just as much as today in terms of having food local. But part of this, when Landmark started the project, it was the county general plan and the city general plan. And I know there were discussions and approach to try to keep the county, the country, the farm, and let the development focus on the city. Obviously, the county does its own plan and they're responsible for that, and Morgan City does its own plan. So neither one can tell the other what to do. But it doesn't always happen this way, particularly in Summit County. I'll just pick on them because they're not here. But in a lot of places where good planning happens, the growth is within the city and not in the county. 5 acre lots are horrible for farming, is what I've been told. I'm not a farmer, but you definitely need those 40 and a lot bigger properties. And so that's where development and growth within the city, and then also preserving the county. And hopefully by doing this, there can be more conversations with the county to encourage them to really preserve that real farmland as you move outward. Listed in the general plan are a lot of different tools. Recently, Nibley City and Cache Valley adopted a transfer development right, which is it's a volunteer program, but if a farmer or landowner wants to preserve their land forever, they could sell the development opportunity, and then that development goes somewhere else within the city in a designated area. And so you essentially move what could be homes or units from a farm, and that's legally preserved and deeded, and it's moved into the city. And all that actually happens within the city, but moves from the perimeter farmland to that. There's just a lot of different tools out there. There's also, I appreciate the comment on gardens, particularly community gardens. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that, especially in the small development pockets. So ag, we do believe ag is important, but again, the focus is on the city as well here. And good planning would be that the city grows out from the core and not this leapfrog development or big, huge properties on the perimeter where ag is growing and functioning. That was my last comment on ag. I think we've hit most of the other comments.
Okay.
Planning Commission, back to you.
Anybody have anything on this?
I appreciate that most of you gentlemen, a lot of you folks here are farmers. I appreciate that tonight. Most of you know through the Farm Bureau, they are active in putting together rules, regulations, and protocol for cities to allow farmers to farm at night and do the things you need to do when you need to do it. The cities adopted those as well in an effort to protect the bail at night type thing concepts. This plan in no way, as Mayor Gale mentioned, my perception through the years has been to not even encourage farmers to sell their ground. You may keep your ground and farm for the next 5 generations if you so choose. I know, for example, Eric bought all the ground from his father's siblings so he could maintain what he wanted across the street from him. So those of you that are in agriculture, or enjoy agriculture, you're the one that holds the key to that farm of yours, that land of yours. The city with this plan is not in any way trying to suggest you change or sell your farm. As Mr. Gill said, what this does is, if you should decide to sell, it gives some tools of how that could be developed if you decide to sell to a non-farm use. And I want to be that, that's clear and content. You may keep your farm. In no way is this meeting or this plan directed at having you decrease or sell your farm. I hope that's a message that Mary gave, message I would give. I hope you heard that message from over here. But yeah, I appreciate being here, but that is not the intent of this at all. What that's worth. The transportation we're looking at pretty seriously. Island Road is a couple of you are looking at the Island Road piece that was kind of brought up tonight, more so what the general plan talks about. That is an area of concern. And the city is looking at that as far as what we do with that, how we make that different for you folks.
Thanks, Ray. I have a comment about, I have the opportunity to talk to young people that are just getting married every day. And I think one of the saddest things is when my wife and I, we grew up in Idaho out on the farm and plenty of room and everything. And like everybody, and when we moved to Utah, we decided when we want to settle down, we want to come out here because it's a great place. But I have 90% of young people coming into my store sitting down and they tell me, yeah, I'll never be able to have a house. I'll never buy a house ever. So part of this is maintaining what we have here. But the other thing, if we look in the audience, everybody is 50 and above, probably. I don't want to offend anybody. And so we're in a little bit different demographic than the young people. And I can tell you, I've talked to a few people that work up in Salt Lake, and there's powers that be that say, if we can't figure out how to develop these places smaller, then it's going to come down from on high to help us figure out how to do it. None of us want that, but when it comes down to dollar and cents, these kids are, demoralized because they're looking at it and go, I'll never be able to live out here. This is it. Even mom and dad gives me a place to live, a piece of ground. So this is really a tough thing for all of us to tackle. And I think doing the general plan and all the time and effort put in there is the first best step for doing this. and making it so that we have some control over this, that as these developers come in, and I think it's worked out pretty good so far, that we can say this is what we want, but without that plan, it was just like, well, we're selling 40 acres over here and putting some houses on it, and, you know, hope that the roads can handle it. But a lot of this, it comes down to dollar and cents for young people. I mean, you used to be able to, we bought a house in Roy, lived in it for 7 or 8 years, sold it, and had, you know, enough to build a house out here, and we love it. That's a tough thing for young people to do. And we don't need a whole city full of old guys like me. We need some young people around here too. So that was my thought on this. Anybody else?
Yeah, plus one more thing. Sometimes when you hear predictions of growth, it makes you panic. For years, so you know, I've set up here for years. I have stated that growth will never happen until people sell their ground. So if you folks want to hang your ground and farm, growth isn't going to happen. We have not grown to the rate which the Wasatch Front folks predicted we would. I just can't crank the numbers. We've grown over the last 20 years at 2%, 2.3%. And they predicted 4 and 5 and 6%. So we're not going to grow in this city until those folks that own land sell their land. So if folks don't sell their land, we're not going to grow, which is okay with me and okay with, you know, the rest of the folks in this room, I think. Everyone in this room would be okay with that concept. And Bruce may come in as far as maybe try and develop from the ground that's not as productive. And we've got a couple, 2 or 3 going up on the hill, some development on the hill up there. And there's another development that's going to happen up there on the hill. And so I think with Bruce's thinking, that's kind of what those developments can do, is put some homes on areas that are not currently productive ground.
Is the city currently providing water and sewer, or water or just sewer to properties that are outside of the city limits? Do you have some variance going on?
In the past, the city has had some electrical users that were outside the city limits. In the past, we've had some water folks. But in the last, 3 or 4 years, we have stopped that process and not allowed it to happen. We have
Outside of the municipality to provide culinary water?
We have currently asked folks if they want services to annex into the city before providing water to them. So 20 years ago, yeah, that happened. But currently in the last 4 or 5 years, we have changed that protocol and not done that.
Mr. Chair, do you want to open the hearing again so that you can accept public comments, or do you want to just limit it to the planning commission? I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
they closed the public
Okay.
hearing.
Should we close this?
It's the reason we have a nuisance attorney sitting beside.
Okay. If there is any further discussion regarding these items, if not, right? From the council. Jason, you still with us? Okay. We'll vote on each of these items separately. Okay, first, we'll vote on annexation declaration map. And then the annexation policy plan. Okay?
Discussion first.
Okay. Is there any discussion, council? Planning commission? No? Okay. So could I please have a motion and a second on this?
Annexation plan.
Oh, on the annexation plan and annexation declaration map. Okay. Can I get a motion and a second?
This is a recommendation to the city council, right? That they approve it favorable?
Okay. So, okay. So we need, say that again?
A favorable recommendation of the city council to approve the annexation.
go ahead, Rick.
Mayor's.
I move we pass a positive recommendation on the city council on the annexation declaration map and the ordinance amendment to our annexation policy declaration.
I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ray and a second by Aaron. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Take an individual vote of each of the members.
What's that?
Can you take an individual vote of each of the members? Just
Yeah, I think you asked me. Okay, we're gonna take individual vote. Mark,
Favor?
okay,
Aye.
Ray, Aaron, and Jason.
Favor.
Jason says, okay, aye. Okay, so whenever you,
And Wes.
and Wes, I say aye. Okay, we have unanimous vote. And
I move we send a favorable recommendation to the city council for the general plan update.
okay, can I please, let's see. So we have a motion is made by Ray. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
And we have a second by Mark.
And you can bring discussion from the council if they want to discuss it.
Okay, do we have any discussion on this? No discussion?
You know, I would just like to say one thing really quick because I kind of didn't have the opportunity to earlier. Just that I want to say amen to everything that Ray said and that the mayor said. And I want to make sure that the public understands that this is not, as they've stated, it's not that we want everything to develop. We are just trying to be proactive if private landowners decide that they want to sell. We hope you don't. But we are trying to balance that community character with private property rights. And I just want to thank all the work that has gone into doing that. That's it.
Thank you.
I'd like to make another statement. It appears tonight like the motions come up and we vote on bang, bang, bang. We have had these booklets for multiple months. And this one of mine is color code with all kinds of notes in it. I think it made people dizzy by passing on stuff to change. If she's laughing at the back in the corner. No, we've spent a lot of time, a lot of due diligence on this, changed a lot of things, made a lot of things, more correct. Originally, that zone, the zone that's now is 2 to 3 lots, originally it was 5 lots per acre. We made some changes in the form of moving that from high density out in the surrounding areas to just 2 lots per acre instead of the 5 that was originally proposed. We've done some work on that, help preserve some of our character and so forth. So yeah, since there's a fast vote tonight, I want you to know we have spent a lot of time going through this and color coding this, and marking this up in different colors and bringing it back and forth. Jake and Elaine in the back of probably don't want to hear from me anymore. Anyway.
You good? Okay. Do we have a motion has been made by Ray, a second by Mark for, help me out here.
The recommendation for the public hearing general plan update.
For what?
Number 1.
Oh, so for a favorable recommendation for public hearing, a general plan update.
General
Okay.
plan update.
Okay. All good? We
good.
need to vote individually?
Yeah.
Okay, Mark,
Aye.
Ray? Aye. Jason? Aye. So we have unanimous decision. The motion passes. No, this general plan one, right?
Mr. Chair,
Just for, can I speak one moment? Can I have the floor?
Can you, yeah, you may, of course.
Just for those that are still left here, we do have the full general plan. It's what approximately 114 pages, is quite long on our website. I do have to apologize, though. We're going through a change in the contract for our website and they're switching it over. So we found already that a few things have been dropped. So if you don't see it there, please check back next week.
Chair, could I also one item too? For those that are here, on March 6th, we're having a public workshop at the middle school, looking at the downtown and trails and parks citywide. We're gonna have big maps out of the city, marking up where trails go, trailheads, talking about parks, talking about the downtown. Please come. It'll be an involvement opportunity at the beginning of the process. So, March 6th at 6 p.m. at the middle school. We did send out in one, and we're looking at other opportunities. Teresa was trying to get a hold of the post office today, but she didn't. So we are looking at ways to really push that out over the next couple of weeks.
And in conjunction
And we
with,
do want a lot of people there. It'll be a very involvement. So please tell all your friends.
in conjunction with Jake, with what Jake's saying, if there's some piece of this that you feel strongly ought to be changed or fixed, it can still be done. We just passed recommendation on the city council. City council will still vote on the final draft of it. So if you see something major, you think, hey, this isn't really right, you're welcome to come discuss with, someone here in the city or the landmark people. I really think we ought to really look at this seriously. The city council still could look at that. So it's not a done deal tonight necessarily.
Ready? Now we'll move on to agenda item 3, 4, and 5. Okay. The refreshments? Oh, thank you.
You'll see it. Maybe. 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 Maybe.
Oh, your pocket's full.
That was good feedback.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone that came tonight. We appreciate it.
I mean, it's just between a rock and a hard spot, to be honest.
Do you want to take a 2-minute
I want to.
recess?
2-minute recess, so people
Okay,
can walk around.
don't leave if you need to stay.
You need a second.
Is that okay? Oh, okay. I mean, we have been going for 2 hours.
Other than
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm drinking from the fire hose up here. Luckily, I don't get embarrassed very easy. My wife's more embarrassed than me. You know, I yeah, I was. Now I guess. And like I said, everybody in here, homes is, but so there. See? I do not.
About a lot of these kids. They haven't had a
Hey, guys, I want to go home sometime tonight, so can we get this thing rolling, please?
But yeah, the system is broken.
Oh, I'm telling you, it is. No, I have one. It is ridiculous what people go through to try to become a citizen. It's ridiculous.
Take your high heels off, need your high heels.
If only I had.
Okay,
I'm like, my legs are probably very great.
Hey, everyone, can we get kind of back to our seats and get started? Ray's used to this. He ain't playing around. I'm not playing with messing with Ray. He's serious. Oh, man. Okay, let's go.
Start talking.
Okay, we're gonna move on to agenda items 3, 4, and 5. And Jake, could you please give an explanation regarding these 3 items?
yeah. Thank you, Chair. I'll go ahead and provide a background on these, a brief one. The reason we're looking at items 3, 4, and 5 together is they're all connected. There's a proposed development, which is number 5. And in order for that to happen, there has to be a rezone on one of the properties. And then also in order for this proposed development to work, but also in considering this new ordinance, there's some tweaks with the ordinance. So in order for, just for the Planning Commission, the public's background, in order for item 5 to carry, items 3 and 4 would also need to be proposed. However, items 3 and 4 could also happen independently of 5. So just keep that in mind. And then I'm going to go ahead and start with, this is the report that was sent over last week on the proposed development. This is in the report. The property is located just east of State Street. It's approximately 4.12 acres. You head east off of Industrial Road and then take a right, and there's the property now. Currently, it's being farmed, and the applicants are here, and so we'll give them an opportunity to address the Planning Commission during this process. So it is 4.12 acres, currently agriculture and use. That's the location. This is the current zoning. This parcel has been requested to be rezoned from commercial to general commercial. And then go to this next map. This shows the current zoning here. So we have general commercial. Teresa, what is CC? What's the second C? Commercial central. Just forgot for a second. And then RM 15. So those are the current zones. And the rezone would be an overlay to the mixed residential. So the base zoning besides the CC would stay the same. And so with an overlay zone, you still have your base zoning, but then the landowner can apply for the overlay zone, which if approved would then take precedent and the development would follow the overlay. This is the map of the proposed development. The MRO or mixed residential overlay requires a concept plan. They do have to come in with a plan that is near to what they want to do. Small tweaks may be okay, but not moving roads, not moving building type, not changing building types or uses. So they really do have to come in with that plan. This is the proposed plan. It includes 20 townhomes and then 11 single-family homes. And so you'll see the layout, 275 north continues and then turns heading southeast. Townhomes are in 2 blocks here, and then the small single-family homes are on the south. And then the development includes a small park and then also additional open space in 2 other areas as well. And one of the unique characteristics of the MRO zone is that includes 15% of the land as a usable open space, meaning it, can be used for playground, kids to play sports, community gatherings, things like that. So that's how it's a little bit different than a traditional subdivision, is it has to have some type of usable open space. And the majority of the land needs to be less than 15% slope for usable. This is the open space plan as part of the proposed development. In terms of staff review, the areas pointing to with the arrows, those are the areas that were considered as the usable open space. The one on the far west has a little trail through it with a playground and a pavilion. So that's more of the community park. And then these other 2 are more open areas. And then the one on the north end, part of that function will most likely be a stormwater detention. Not necessarily all of it, but part of it. The ordinance only allows that 25% of the usable open space be used for stormwater. So the whole thing cannot be stormwater. Here's a zoom in of the park there, the trail, the playground, and the pavilion. And this last exhibit, I think that's the last image. Oh, no, there's a few more. So this exhibit is how the single-family homes would work. The requirement is that the garages are placed behind the homes. And so you have the homes out front with some water-wise landscaping, and then the garage behind, and then a shared driveway to the homes. And the driveway would be private, but shared between the 2 owners, and there would have to be legal agreements on that at the time of sale. These are some of the architectural exhibits provided by the applicant, the type of homes they're looking at, cottage homes, and of course the garage would be back behind. Windows out front, door out front, little porch out front as well. These are the exhibits provided for the townhomes. The garages are behind, landscaping out front. And then on the actual building plan submittal, that's when we would review to make sure they meet the architectural requirements, that the facades are different colors, materials, things like that. And so each building cannot be the same. Okay, I'm going to go through my summary comments. In reviewing the plan, I found that it does meet the requirements. The rezone of parcel 1256 to CG does conform with the general plan in terms of commercial in that area. The overall project is compatible with the general plan in terms of variety of housing. The general plan doesn't identify specific MRO areas. That was intentional, but it does identify the need for a variety of housing types within the city. The application does meet the requirements of the overall site plan, building types and unit numbers, setbacks, lot sizes and widths, and the usable open space, if the zoning text is approved. And okay, that's the summary I was going to provide on the application. Any questions on that before I move on to the other items? Go ahead. Yes. Planning Commission may discuss the design details with the applicant. I mean, you can actually get into the design of the project on the various details with that, where this is a rezone. If it were a traditional application for a building, well, if it were for a building, you probably wouldn't see it, but if it were for a subdivision or something like that, unless it were a road or something out, you wouldn't necessarily get into the design as much. But because this is a legislative action, meaning that it'll require city council final approval and planning commission will make a positive or negative recommendation, you can discuss design items with the applicant if you'd like.
At what point in the process would that be appropriate?
Tonight would be appropriate. They will have to come back for a subdivision because the plan would require a subdivision. So they would have to come back for the subdivision process as well. And so if it were more at the subdivision level, you could do that. If it's the overall design, then tonight would be appropriate to have a discussion with the applicant and also make recommendations or requirements if feasible, if suitable. And on that, with the MRO, there's a lot of detailed requirements that will come. Most of that is actually going to be at the staff level in terms of landscaping. Are they meeting the ordinance? Because we do have water-wise landscaping that's required for this. Also, the architectural variety requirement, that'll be staff detail review. In terms of engineering, it'll be typical sidewalks, streets, stormwater, utilities, all of that will follow the typical process. Is that answering your question? Tonight, I would say overall, if it's detailed stuff, you can still talk about it, but some of it may come with actual building permit application or subdivision application.
So you enter this off of State Street, right? And at 275 East, is that what it is?
Yes.
So so does it dead end at the other end? Pardon me? Right.
Yeah.
But it dead ends at the other end?
It does dead end. The plan is the city's plan would be to continue that through. I'm going to just pull up the map here.
I guess my question is could that eventually connect to another highway? And that,
Potentially.
Future red dotted line.
okay,
It'll come out by the old Kerrigan Motor.
right, okay, that's the eventual plan? Okay,
That is another landowner, and so
so is that
obviously
the issue?
yes, that is the issue. That exactly. Okay, there we go. So the plan is it would connect, I believe, right here to 300 East. And there's even right of way saved in here. So that is the plan to connect it. At this point, it would be, we can't force that because the other land is owned by a different property owner and there's no application on that. However, when that comes in, then the city can force these two connections and we'll have that additional connection through this whole block, which will be nice. The property is located in the sensitive lands ordinance area. A couple of things on that. That doesn't affect the rezone of the small parcel. Also, the sensitive lands doesn't affect a rezone to MRO. They would have to follow the full sensitive lands ordinance process in the future as it develops. There is the option also of raising up the buildings and the land and taking it out of the floodplain as it's developed as well.
When it comes to the subdivision phase, shouldn't there be a dual ingress and egress?
So the sensitive lands ordinance allows up to 20 units on a single access. However, if they do raise it up, or if they do make the changes to remove it from the floodplain, then it would follow the fire code. And Matt and I have discussed this and looked at the plan together and talked about it, and this would fall under the fire code in terms of fully acceptable. So there's either two things there. If it stays in the sensitive lands, then they could only build up to 20 until that second access comes. Or the second option is by raising elevation and making changes to the terrain, then they could go through the legal process of the LOMA and the CLOMAR and take it out of the LOMAR, take it out of the flood zone. Yes. No, even more than that. It's up to, I think, 30 single-family homes and an additional apartments, which the townhomes would fall under that number. So it is okay according to fire code for that, if it were taken out. Either way, it'll be covered, and that's also a future decision. You can't make your vote tonight or in the future based upon that. Gary, just correct me when I start veering off.
Just a question, Mr. Chair. So there will be, we talked about this, there would be a development agreement that would be accompanying this to the council. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah, yes, and our part of the recommendation is that the development agreement follow the typical process. You got ahead of me a little bit, but any more questions, I can move on to the second item, which does address Gary's question.
I just want to compliment you on it. This thing looks awesome. And it's a good start that everybody can follow what you guys are doing. I'm impressed. It looks great. Appreciate it.
On your comments that you made earlier.
With your comments that you made earlier, with young families and that is the purpose of this. With our kids, I've got employees, so as well, and to keep them here in Morgan, it's tough for them to stay here in Morgan to afford it, right? And so I'm battling it from both sides of my kids being able to afford here and my employees being able to stay here and work. So those are, a lot of those single family lots are going to them to be able to purchase. And so, and that age is from 26 years and younger. All of them is where my employees sit that can afford to do that. So that was the purpose of it. This isn't just a development to make money, because as the comments were made about development costs, they're high and the things that we got to do, but it's an opportunity for some of these and obtainable, I think, for some of these younger families. So.
These kids, it breaks my heart to hear these young couples.
Total 30.
Can I make one
Thank you.
comment before
Yeah.
we move on? I just want to say that I think this looks really great. My only concern is the lack of architectural variety in the townhomes. And I'm assuming that that will be resolved with the staff, that you'll make sure that they're compliant. Other than that, though, looks fabulous.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item. So as part of this, there was the last 2 months, the applicants and I have been very busy talking to staff, working with their designers and others. And as part of this, the plan that you're seeing is probably the 10th version. Actually, you haven't seen the 9 previous ones because they kept going back and back and back to make it work. And I'm glad that they were willing to follow our ordinance, make it work. But also in doing this, I probably said this before, no ordinance is perfect. And now I'm here to admit that the MRO needs a little bit of tweaking if this is going to work. And so there's some small tweaking tweakings, it's not a word, but there's a recommendation to change a few things on this ordinance in order for this to work. And so I'm going to go through those. The first one is the usable open space. The ordinance says that usable open space is greater than 1 acre made, oh, okay. Let's see, it's not quite right. So the ordinance is that for this development, the original application as the current ordinance is that the open space would have to be one area, one contiguous area. And looking at their project, but also at other potential projects and looking around the city, I found that with smaller developments of 4, 5, 6 acres, it's going to be really hard to have a single usable open space, just because you're taking a project and you're fitting it into irregular geometry and making it work. And so with that, what I'm recommending here, the text in red, for projects 7 acres or less are permitted to be divided into 1 to 3 areas. So that open space can be 1 up to 3 areas. It does meet this project, but I think it'll also meet future projects. I do suggest that we keep that at a specific number, because the ordinance states that general landscaping and little open space areas are not the usable open space. And then projects over 7 acres shall have usable open spaces in 1 to 5 areas. So if it gets to be a little bit bigger project, then they can have a couple more areas to spread that out. That's the first recommendation. And then also,
The open space doesn't include the retention pond, right?
so how the ordinance reads is up to 25% of the open space can be as part of the stormwater.
Okay.
And then also that no open space shall be less than 5,000 square feet. Just so, again, so we end up with a space that can be used, even if it's not really big, it still can be, as big as this room or bigger, in terms of you're able to do something and not a little side strip here or something like that.
The proposed open space plan. I see the 2 areas. I'm not sure why that third is any different than the others around it. You just got landscaped areas.
So the third is this one here in the middle.
How's that different than the one down on the bottom edge or across the top?
It's wider. It's wider and just a little bit bigger. And it meets another requirement that's in here.
Okay.
And I'll actually get to that next requirement, because that is the next item here. So a minimum of 25% of the perimeter or a street front of 60 feet, whichever is less of the usable open space, shall be directly in front of a public or private street for access. And so dropping that to 40 also makes that open space work. And the reason for the 40 number is that's also the same as how far the buildings have to be apart from each other. In the ordinance requires that these two townhome buildings have to be 40 feet apart. And that's very intentional, so that they have a yard. In this case, it's a front yard, but there still is a yard. They, open the front door and they're not looking straight at. In Salt Lake, there are some townhome developments where it's 10 feet from front door to front door. And so you open your front door and you're staring at another front door. This was intentional so that there is that open space in between, and 40 feet was the decided number during the process. So that's where these two things come together, dropping the 60 to 40, and then also counting that one area as a usable open space.
Jake, can I comment on that?
Yep.
That 40 feet, so between buildings on that is actually 70 feet. We opened that up to 70 feet. Your 40-foot measurement is from sidewalk to sidewalk on that. So
between them middle buildings, it's
from front door to front door. is 70 feet. Now, in the
Build all the
grass,
building wall.
actual grass space from sidewalk to sidewalk is 40 feet. But the ordinance reads that it could be front door to front door would be 40. Is that? That,
I'm glad you did it this way. Let's just say that.
yeah.
Well,
So we
this-
opened it
This way
up
it works for
so that
the
it-
open space.
Yeah.
Is I think
is what we're.
is the important part.
Okay.
It actually would be the building frontage, like wherever the porch comes out, wherever that architecture ends is where it would be. But to count as open space, then you do meet it with the 40 feet.
So how wide is the shared driveways? That go back behind these?
Are you talking the
These ones right
single
here.
family? Or are you talking it? Okay, on the single family?
Yeah.
Those ones will actually be, I think it laid out to be 12 feet, 12 to 13 feet from the side of the house to property line. So between houses overall would be 24 to 26 feet between the houses.
So two cars could pass?
Yes.
Going through there.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yeah.
So if you're a really good driver, you could pull in and out without going on the.
Right. If it's a smaller car, piece of cake, you know, you can spin them on the dime.
But if you're
But
somebody who drives a big, nice Ford Raptor, then you might be, of course, they turn really tight, so they don't.
The garage isn't big enough to house that either.
Say that again.
The big Ford Raptor, the garage isn't big
Yeah,
enough to house that.
That's true.
either.
They're not parking in the garage. Good point. Okay, I want to go over these last couple items here. Also, how the ordinance reads is that the HOA CC&Rs are required at this level. There's three things that we don't want to take away from being a requirement. We just want to move to a different time in the process. And that's the HOA CC&Rs, the property and landscape management plan, and also the master development agreement. A lot of times these are negotiated items, particularly with legal counsel like Gary. And so moving them a little bit later in the process when there can be a lot more back and forth and after a rezone just seems to make more sense. And the current city process for a development agreement is city council approves them. And then if they like, they can send it to the planning commission for input, but typically it's legal counsel and city council that has the say on development agreement
With planning staff.
with planning staff.
We try to reflect what you have indicated that you want in those agreements as well as the planning commission. And then carry that to the council in the form of a development agreement.
And so with it being a lot of back and forth and negotiated items, we felt it'd be better to move it later on in the process than early on. And also at this point, when application comes in, it takes a lot of time just to focus on the site plan and are they meeting all the physical requirements before we get into negotiating development agreement and all that. So that's the other. And again, in this change in the ordinance, it's just moving it from one section to another. Zero change with the wording or anything like that. So this was our pilot project and on it. So thank you. Yeah. That's my my summary background report on it.
Morgan City requires a public hearing for land use issues. So item 3, mixed residential overlay ordinance, Title 10, Chapter 10.15, text amendment. Item 4, rezone from commercial central to commercial general for property located at approximately 300 North, 300 East, Morgan, Utah. And item 5, mixed residential overlay zone on 2 parcels located at approximately 300 North, 300 East Morgan, Utah requires a public hearing. Good. Yeah, could I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing?
Move to open the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion to open the hearing. Do I got a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion to open the hearing by Aaron, a second by Mark to open the public hearing.
I think you have a question from Jason. Oh, is he, are you voting? Okay.
Oh, okay.
He's voting. He's always on top of it, so.
Okay, is there anyone here at the meeting in person? Let's, huh?
You vote on open public hearing, all in favor?
All in favor?
That's what David voted on.
Oh, that's what he was raising his hand for. Okay,
He's ready to call for the vote.
okay. We have unanimous, the vote was unanimous, everybody. Yeah, it's been a very long day, especially being sick. Now, do I just move
The
on?
public hearing is now open.
Yeah.
Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment on those items?
That's my backyard, and so been watching that and, oh, I think you can hear me without the mic, can't?
Yeah,
Oh.
if you'll state your name as well.
Howard Brinkerhoff, on 250 East, 200 North. And immediately behind is this new development, which sounds like fun and going to set a precedent for Morgan City. A couple of things on the fragmentation of the green space for the smaller areas, smaller subdivisions or developments. Fragmentation of those areas decreases wildlife use. Something to consider. There is a deer herd there, which will be impacted no matter how you do it. That all the people along that street either enjoy or hate because they're involved in the gardens, ours in particular, but we enjoy them. I had a question about the open ditch. Will that be piped or is that up to the irrigation company between the homes and the new development? What's going to happen with that? And let's see, there was one other thing on your changes there. Primarily, it's usually when we talk about open space, we think of it in terms of human use. And in a place like Morgan, where wildlife's important to us, I think that's maybe should enjoy a deeper look. Whatever that means. So, yeah, otherwise, it's sure nice to be able to provide some housing in Morgan that's affordable for the younger people. I agree. Even though we've lost the view, green space, so to speak, be nice to have opportunity for more people to enjoy the community. That's my comment.
Any further public comment?
Any other comments? Okay. There's no, you have
I'm
one?
going to close the public hearing.
Oh, thank you. We got a motion to close the public hearing. Do you have a second? Mark gives us a second. We close this hearing. All in favor, say aye. Okay, Teresa, we have unanimously passed to close the hearing. Is there any further discussion regarding the items?
We'll take first, item number 3. We'll go over discussion from the council. Any discussion on item number 3, which is the orders change. I think Jake explained very well. I've read through it. I don't have a problem with the changes he made. It makes sense to make those changes and move the HOA to the later portion of the process. and adjust the open space. So I'm in favor of the project, I'm in favor of those changes to item 3.
So do we want to vote on item 3 the way it stands or with the,
Right, you need to vote on item 3, call for motion on item 3.
okay.
Is
So
there any further discussions?
during discussion on item 3, okay, well, let's have a vote on item 3 in the mixed residential overlay ordinance, title 10, chapter 10.15 text amendment. Could I have a motion? Ray, give us the motion in a second.
I move that we pass a federal regulation on the city council, the mixed use overlay ordinance, title 10, chapter 15, text amendments.
I second.
Second. So we have a motion by Ray and a second by Aaron. All in favor? Aye.
It was a favorable recommendation. Is that right, Mr. Chairman?
Actually said, yeah.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Pass that.
Where'd that pass at? Sorry. Okay, second.
Or on item 4.
We'll vote on item 4, rezone from commercial central to commercial general parcel 00-0056-1256 located approximately 300 north, 300 east, Morgan, Utah. Could I please have a motion?
Correction, I was just gonna,
The next view.
Is that wrong?
the next view,
You're right.
then,
Yeah, just that one. Let's see this corner up here. It's in context with the whole thing.
sure.
Here you
Okay,
go.
I just wanted to, you read one of the numbers wrong.
Discussion.
Parcel 05-NG1-0002.
Yeah, it's here. I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
Oh. Okay,
Call for discussion from the council.
yeah. Is there any discussion on this? No, Jason? No?
Now we call for motion on it.
Okay, could we, have a motion and a second on item 4. Ray, give us a motion. Can I get a
I
second?
move
go ahead.
to pass on the federal recommendation to rezone from commercial central to commercial general on parcel number 00-0056-1256, located approximately 300 north, 300 east, Morgan, Utah.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I have a second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ray and a second by Mark. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Jay votes too.
Jason's aye. Teresa, we have a motion passed unanimously. Okay. Third, we'll vote on item 5. Mixed residential overlay zone on parcel 00-056-1256 and parcel 00-0004-9278 located at approximately 300 north, 300 east, Morgan, Utah. Any discussion? Go ahead, Ray.
Question, Jay, your clarification, help me out. Those two parcels are different zones. The one's RM, one's the other CG. Does our overlay zone fit on both those zones?
Yes,
Yeah, I understand it would fit over the RM 15 or the CG. Does CG allow for residential use in CG?
yes, it does.
Okay.
And how this will look on the zoning map, because well, if it goes through, we'll have to update the zoning map. It'll be a hatch, diagonal lines across. And so you'll see the zone underneath and then you'll see the overlay on top.
Okay. Just want to clarify that point.
Yep.
So we're clear on that, Okay.
Any other discussion?
I heard Aaron mentioned the design. We beat some other people up for design stuff. I like the colors we got on the view, on the things you present in your scripts. However, I'm gonna presume those were just pictorial views to get this process started. I'm guessing they're not gonna look exactly like that time you get done. Or is this exactly what you're proposing? Okay.
Change, so the buildings will be different. Yeah, we'll have some different variations that way. The different in windows, and some things to mix it up, so it doesn't look all the exact same.
And that's my objection.
That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll have some, little variations there, so you know which house is yours.
And how the ordinance reads is that the buildings have to be different, not each unit.
That's my concern,
Yeah.
that all four
Well,
of these buildings look exactly the same. And doesn't it say like within 400 feet or something?
So
like
they
that?
do have to be different. The buildings do have to be
Yeah,
different.
okay, and that's what I wanted to.
And
confirm.
it's, you can do that with style, colors, materials, like you mentioned, the window treatment, doors. There's a lot of options.
Four of the criteria that
Yes,
we've listed,
yeah.
yeah.
And the planning commission, you can make a recommendation on colors or design. I mean, more of a recommendation on that, as long as he's meeting the ordinance, then the buildings will move through the process. But if you want more color or you like some different things, then you can,
They look great. I just think they need to not all look the same. Right.
okay.
But the floor plan can be the same,
Correct.
right?
Floor plans could be.
Footprint's still.
Yeah.
there we go.
You can't, there's not much you can do.
Especially at the garage behind.
Now, if you could change the roof line, that would be awesome. Probably pricey.
I personally like the colors. I like what you've done here. I like in that color. I don't like colorful stuff. I like what you've done. So I really do. My vote doesn't matter, but my vote doesn't matter.
You don't like way colorful stuff?
No.
That shocks me.
But I like what you've done here. And the county judge with Aaron said maybe they'll write in other stuff, which there was, so I just want to clarify that before we vote.
Any other discussion on this? Okay. Okay, could I please have a motion and a second regarding item?
I'll make a motion that we approve the mixed residential overlay zone on partial 00-0056-1256 and partial number 00-0004-9278, located approximately 300 north, 300 east in Morgan, Utah.
Give a favorable recommendation to the council.
And that we give a favorable recommendation to the city council.
Any?
Jay's gonna second this one.
Hmm?
Jay's gonna second this one.
Yeah, Jay seconded it.
Jay seconded it.
I second.
Second it? Oh, okay. All right. So we have a motion by Mark. Do I need to restate that?
No.
Thank you. And a second by Jason. Any discussion on the motion? No? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Jason vote aye.
Okay. He says, Teresa, it's unanimous, passed unanimously. Okay, everybody. Jake, thanks. It's been a long trail for you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you to the Knights,
I
everyone.
think we're off on the right direction. These guys, I just remember that first meeting, they just kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? But yeah, we appreciate it. Okay, everybody, have fun. Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a timeline?